baby. We are pretty much operating back at 100% capacity. Your boy Viper is back to full strength. What is going on? Good evening to you all. How are y'all doing? What is happening? Happy Wednesday. All right, let me go in here and start my Twitter space because I am doing a simultaneous live stream and Twitter space tonight. And boom, the Twitter space has began. We are in the building, baby. What is going on? So I got a guest coming here any moment, but shout out to Sheep Plays out there. What's up, man? How you doing? Appreciate you being here, my dude. We got Jonathan Rash out here. What's up, my dude? How you doing? Appreciate you all hanging out while your boy Viper is in the building. Shout out to my man Joseph in the Twitter space. Appreciate you, my dude. What's going on with you? Janosis is in the cut. What's up, Janosis? How you doing, man? What's going on with you? Good to see you as always. Cool Gamer is here. What's up, man? How you doing? What's going on with you? What's up? What's up? Jonathan Rash, what's up, man? How you doing, dude? What's going on? Oh, I already said what up to you, didn't I? So well. Bruce Lee, what's up, man? Bruce Lee's in the building. How you doing, my dude? What is this? Is that Lethal Emperor? Oh my lord, that is Lethal Emperor. What is going on, my dude? How you doing? What's happening with you? And JFT, what's up, JFT? How you doing, man? Appreciate you all being here. Oh, we got more people in the Twitter space. We got Annette. What's up, Annette? How you doing? And Sheep Plays, and then the Twitter space too. So he's on YouTube and the Twitter space. Oh my goodness. All right. So yeah, got a special guest coming here in a moment. I'm gonna wait till he shows up, and then we'll get into the festivities here. But I appreciate y'all dropping here. So basically, I want to live stream this year. I'm gonna try. I'm not gonna make any promises to you all, but I definitely want to try this year to live stream more than just Friday night. So I think right now I'm going to try to live stream on Wednesdays and Fridays. So that is the plan. I can't make any promises, but as of right now, I'm going to try to live stream at least twice a week instead of just the normal once a week that I do just to have more time with you all. But speaking of my special guest, he has just arrived in the building. So y'all know him. He is a good friend of mine. Let me welcome back my man, the myth, the legend himself, Renee Ritchie. What's up, man? How you doing?
Viper, you always were the best there was, the best there is, the best there ever will be.
Oh, man, I appreciate you. How you doing tonight, Renee?
Good, man. How you doing? Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, man. I know it was short notice, so I appreciate you making the time tonight, man. So thank you.
It's just frozen here. It's like, what is it? It's like, I don't know. It's like -20 or something. So I gotta.
Hey, man, it's been like the teens here. So I think today is like the first day in a while we've had like 30-degree temperature.
Nice.
So Renee, there's a few things going on in Apple land I figured we could talk about tonight. I made a video. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. I made a video detailing the whole iMessage RTX controversy that's going on with the comments on Twitter by Google Senior VP Hiroshi Lockheimer. He basically is accusing iMessage of fostering bullying, blah, blah. And I'm just like, no, dude, no, that's not how it works. But here, the thing that he's talking about, and a lot of people were talking about, is that Apple should incorporate support for RCS, which is rich communication services. Like I said, if you haven't watched the video, I did a whole video on this yesterday. But my thing, Renee, as I highlighted in my video, is that given their position right now, there really is no incentive for Apple to support RCS. So just curious to get your thoughts on this.
I mean, I thought the comments from Hiroshi were embarrassing. Like, I don't even know what Google PR would think about it. Like you don't see Craig going on there going, oh, Google should put their camera app on iOS. I know it's not the same thing, but it's like unbecoming. You're a vice president. Like, you can pick up the phone and talk to anybody you want at Apple. The only reason to go on Twitter is to talk to Twitter, not to Apple.
Yeah, I think he was trying to win some points in the court of public opinion more than anything. And yeah, it does look kind of foolish on his end for a VP to be putting tweets out like that. Especially just that magnitude, accusing another competitor of bullying. Like, bro, really?
Well, it's the whole thing is weird. Like, I love Neil Seibert's take where it's like, Wall Street Journal, we need a story. How about iMessage is really popular with teens? No, nobody would read that. How about the iMessage causes bullying with teens? Yes, that's it. Print it.
It's so weird. So as I highlighted in the video yesterday, even if Apple were to magically incorporate RCS into iMessage, it doesn't mean the whole green bubble, blue bubble thing will go away, because Apple will always want to distinguish between their features and what the competitor is doing. And Apple is allowed to do that. I mean, we live in a capitalistic society. Apple should be allowed to distinguish between their features and other features. So I don't know if this whole bullying thing or this whole green bubble, blue bubble thing goes away, even if Apple incorporates RCS.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things there. Like, one is that there's this weird thing on Twitter where people get upset that other people make money. Like they act like companies shouldn't make money. They forget that like Apple and like Google too, all these companies, they're businesses. So like if you ran your corner store the way Tech Twitter wanted these companies to run, they'd be out of business. And then people are like, oh, why don't YouTubers turn off ads? It's like why don't you just give away everything in the corner store for free? It's like the whole thing is so weird. It's like such a weird mindset, like privileged, entitled. You go work for free. Show me how that works out. Like you lead by example. But the other thing is like the bubbles have nothing to do, like originally they had nothing to do with even like basic differentiation. Apple had SMS. It was all green. And they tried to get the carriers to agree to like a better standard. And the carriers refused because back then they were making so much money. Nokia said it was the most profitable legal business ever devised by humanity, being able to charge 25 cents for like a carrier stream text message. And if you did it overseas, it'd be like $1 or something. And they were making like all the money for doing nothing. This was like existing trivial bandwidth. And so Apple they got frustrated and they made iMessage. And they needed to differentiate between an SMS and an iMessage because let's say you and I are iMessaging and I'm in England and you're in Chicago. And for some reason, one of us goes off of data and the messages turns green. That's going to cost me $1.50 now. And they have to show me that what I'm about to send is a text message, not an iMessage. And also from a security standpoint, our blue bubble conversation is end-to-end encrypted. The green bubble ones aren't. So they have to visually show you that what you're about to send may or may not cost you money, depending on whether, and maybe still to this day, if you don't have any texting on your plan, it may cost you money. Because if they don't do that, they will get sued. And it may not be encrypted because if you care about security, like let's say you think you're somebody at risk and suddenly AT&T or Verizon or the NSA is reading everything in plain text, that could be an issue for you. So it was important, like interface, to have those colors differentiated.
Yeah, and like you said, when they originally made the feature, I mentioned their intention, they never really thought about the whole bullying thing. Again, like you said, they just wanted to distinguish between iMessage and everything else. But because human beings are terrible people, we just happen to evolve it into this whole, oh, you have an Android or you have a green bubble, blah, 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 blah. But I'm sorry, that's not on Apple. That's on people raising their kids to be better human beings in the long run, because that's a human psychology problem. Companies have been for eons distinguishing their features in different ways, whether it be green bubble, blue bubble, or one feature over another feature and things like that. I just have a hard time with people accusing Apple of bullying when basically it's just a basic feature distinguished. Then again, there's been a lot of this stuff going on lately with people basically making Apple out to be a scapegoat. We could talk about this whole thing with AirTags. We got people on here talking about how AirTags should be canceled because people are using them in the wrong way. How is that? I mean, okay, so AirTags are not perfect, and could Apple do something to include safety for AirTags? Yes, I'm not saying Apple went perfect. Let's get that out of there. But just a rush to blame Apple for people misusing AirTags and not acknowledging that bad human beings are bad human beings. Technology, rather it be from Apple, Samsung, Google, or whatever, technology has been misused since the dawn of time. It was misused before AirTags. It will be misused after AirTags. And I just hate that we rush to blame Apple for everything that's going on when a lot of times it's not even Apple's fault. But can Apple do things better? Absolutely.
I mean, people are also hella lazy. Like everyone, I read that Craig Mazin said this really well. The guy who made Chernobyl and he's working on The Last of Us now. But he's like, I don't like Twitter because it makes me feel like I should be forced to have a very loud opinion about everything, regardless about how little I know about it. And I need to put it up as fast as possible. And that's like Twitter. Like the minute something happens, nobody like stops and researches it. It takes me days to research this stuff. And people are like putting up these strong opinions. Like just to go back to like the iMessage thing or the AirTags, everything is a trade-off. So me personally, I would prefer not to have SMS on iMessage anymore because I don't like the idea that my messages could fall back onto an insecure protocol. So like I don't ever, you can turn that off in settings, but like just in general, I don't ever want to be typing to you and suddenly I see a green bubble and I go, oh damn. You know, I don't want that to happen. But if Apple does switch to RCS is not a mature standard. Like I believe most people support one-to-one encryption now. I don't believe they support one-to-many encryption. And so less people are going to be able to have that fallback. So you're removing it from people who are already disadvantaged. And like that might be the only thing that they have. So, and the same thing with AirTags. AirTags are supposed to be for finding lost objects. They are not very good for tracking people because they tattletale and they are locked to your Apple ID, and Apple will turn that over under a subpoena. You are much better off getting a Samsung, a Tile, or a $40 GPS thing off Amazon if you really want to surveil people.
Yes!
But also, they are not great for theft prevention. And like the worse they are for, like, people are already upset that they're not good for theft protection. But Apple does not want you to be Batman either. They don't want you to track down your car and get shot. So they're trying to service like this very narrow middle corridor. And some people are going to be upset about stalking. Some people are going to be upset that it's not better for anti-theft. But it's not intended. It is literally a tracking lost objects.
Right, exactly. And again, people are going to abuse whatever they can abuse because that's the nature of human beings. That doesn't mean that Apple made a bad product or the product should be discontinued. It just means that people are misusing it. And when they do that, they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And Renee just highlighted, I said it a long time ago. If you're really using AirTags to trap people, you're an idiot. Because like Renee said, those can be tracked back to you. They can literally be tracked back to you. Why would you use an AirTag to track somebody? And if they find it, they're coming for you. Like, why would you do that?
It's an awareness thing. Like Apple brings so much awareness, so much marketing to everything that people probably didn't know you could do this before. Like real criminals did. Real criminals have been doing this for a long time. They've been using actual GPS trackers. Right? They've been dropping phones on people. They've been hacking people's phones. Like that's been going on for years. But now like the dumbest people are suddenly like, oh, I can track somebody. And it's like, it literally is the dumbest people who are suddenly aware of it. And they're doing it and they're going to be caught. And you know they're going to be caught because the dumb articles about it are about people who got caught.
Seriously, I'm sorry. You have to be a complete idiot to use an Apple device for the commission of a crime. Like that's just not smart. Like, no. Apple had too much lockdown on that. That's just craziness. But yeah. And the other thing that kind of irked me, and that I made a video about this a few days ago, is the recent Apple Watch ad, the one with the 911 call for Renee. Apple released the 911 calls that people made talking about how their Apple Watch was there to aid in their being saved in their situations. And people, again, attacking Apple, accusing Apple of fear-mongering because of this ad. And I'm like, Renee, it can't be fear-mongering if the watch does what it's advertised to do, Renee. How do I am really getting annoyed at people attacking Apple for the dumbest reasons, Renee. I don't know. Why doesn't it keep happening?
Because I mean, like it's in some ways it's just simple. It's like if you like a company, you're predisposed to like what they do. If you don't like a company, you can look at the exact same thing and find it annoying. Like, and this pick any company you don't like, look at them and you'll find what they do annoying, and pick a company you like and you won't. It could be the exact same thing because humans are not perfect. But there's a lot of people out there who are just low key smoldering about Apple all the time, and they'll see anything and they'll just look at it and they'll only see. It's like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but hatred is also in the eye of the beholder. And so they'll look at it, and some person will go, we live in an age of miracles. People are literally being saved at sea because they're wearing a watch. People who would have otherwise legitimately have died. And they'll be like, we live in an age of miracles. And other people would be going, oh my God, I can't believe you're trying to scare me into buying an Apple Watch. And, there's some validity to both those positions, but you're saying a lot more about you than you are about the actual product.
It's just, I mean, it's one thing if the watch didn't do what Apple advertised it to do. And I would even argue that Apple's not really advertising it outright. I mean, obviously they're providing examples, but when they try to sell you an Apple Watch, they don't really advertise the fact that it can save your life. They do advertise that it has like potential health features on it, but they don't outright market the watch as a life-saving metric because that would be wrong because that's not always the case. But if there is proof out there, and we have countless stories out there that have shown the watch to aid in the saving of lives, and Apple uses that in their marketing, I feel like Apple is absolutely in the right because that is an actual real world effect of wearing the watch. It can help in saving your life, and Apple is not wrong to use that in their marketing. And I don't feel like it's fear mongering. I just feel like it's real world application being put out for everybody to see.
Yeah, there's a couple of good comments. I mean, Jeff said it lowered the barrier of entry for stalking, which I would quibble with slightly because the barrier for stalking was super low. Like you could get $40 literal GPS devices. You could get Tiles, Samsung tags, but it increased awareness. Like really dumb criminals didn't know it was a possibility. So the barrier of entry was already low, but people just didn't understand that. So really, and there's this famous West Wing line where it says like, there is no amount of law enforcement manpower or money that can equal criminals being stupid. That's just like, that's how they get caught. Is there like, it's a tail light or something. That's just dumb criminals get caught, and they're getting caught with this now. And my thing would be, I would just legislate so that if you're caught in the commission of a crime using location services, like don't make it like using a firearm, but there are already penalties for using certain things in the commission of a crime, like firearms, make it so that if you're using location in the commission of a crime, your sentence is doubled. And that gives people like a reason to like stop and think, oh, maybe it ain't worth it. Maybe I don't need to know where my Aunt Sophia is going so badly that I'm going to risk double my jail time to find out.
Right. So Trail features attack, and if there are any articles covering where Apple handed over information that led to the arrest of somebody tracking, there's nothing out there to my knowledge, but
well, they can't just like that. Like Apple can't disclose specifics of any incident, but if you go to their page, they will tell you what information is being handed over. And every time you set up an AirTag, you have to connect that to your iCloud account, and it pulls up the name of the device and a bunch of other things, and all of that is stored on iCloud, and Apple is required to hand over iCloud in the event of a subpoena.
Correct.
As far as I know, they're the only company that goes to that level to secure the devices.
Yeah, so like Renee said, you probably won't hear about Apple handing over information because they're obligated to keep that stuff to themselves and different things like that. But like Renee said, if Apple is ordered to hand over that information in iCloud and it's in iCloud, they're going to do that because they're going to comply. That's just it's out there in iCloud. I mean, at that point, it's fair game to law enforcement. But
yeah, and you can find a small print of that on Apple's privacy page.
It's oh my God, so much stuff going on with Apple.
So Trent is also saying something good. He wishes the Apple Watch wasn't dependent on an iPhone. And I've been asking for this for years. The problem is that the iPhone is just still so constrained. Like it took until iOS 5 for the iPhone to be independent of the Mac. So it took 5 years to get the iPhone completely independent from iTunes and being tethered to a Mac. And that's when they created iCloud. And the Apple Watch is way, way more constrained than an iPhone. It still can't do full LTE, for example. Even a cellular watch, if you turn off the phone that it's connected to, it loses a bunch of services. So my understanding is that Apple is working on it, and that's why they did like the onboard. That's why they added LTE. They added the onboard Apple Store. They added the ability to set it up for kids that don't have their own iPhone, and they're just going to continue adding that as technology allows until like 2 or 3 years from now. They have everything in place where it's like you only want an Apple Watch, just buy an Apple Watch. It's on ultra efficient 5G, and you'll still need something to set it up because setting it up on that tiny screen is going to suck. It's like trying to put in like your Apple ID or like your Gmail address on that screen is going to suck. So you'll need something to set it up, but then largely it'll be independent.
Definitely.
And maybe the web will do that. Like you go to iCloud and you set up your Apple Watch.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Apple is moving towards making the Apple Watch independent, and if they do, it would open it up to a much wider audience. So I gotta imagine that has to be in the plans at some point. But maybe
it'll move. It's like the iPhone will, like the Apple Watch will become almost as useful as the iPhone, and then AirPods and glasses will become almost as useful as the Apple Watch is now, and they'll be dependent. Like there's like it moves. It shifts dependencies over time.
JFT, it can do LTE, but like Renee said, if you turn the phone off, then it loses a lot of capability, but it'll still have LTE connectivity regardless. I mean,
yeah, it'll do phone calls, but some of the text services stop functioning and some of the relay services stop functioning.
Right. So we got a few people in the Twitter space, and I don't want to forget that we have people in the Twitter space. And so if you guys want to come join the conversation, just let me know, raise your hand, and I will gladly bring you up here. Renee, I saw something as a leak, I think it was this week, about the Apple VR headset that's rumored to come out this year. And the leak pretty much went something to the effect of Apple will not be a part of the metaverse. I guess they're going to be doing their own thing. So I'm not sure exactly what that means. In your opinion, does that mean that Apple may be creating their own OS for this headset, or are they going to use something that already exists between iOS and macOS and iPadOS? Like, how is that going to work if they're not going to be part of the wider metaverse? I'm confused.
No, I think like a lot of times the problem with leaks is that people get like a little bit of information and then they try to spin a whole story around it because like a little bit of information is only 3 sentences, and they create like whatever narrative. And the problem is that a lot of people just, for some reason, they don't understand Apple. Like Apple's a very logical company and they're a very consistent company, but people keep assigning them these weird motivations. My understanding is that the headset is like, think of the AR glasses as an extension of Apple Watch. Like they're meant for glances and for like periodic information, opportunistic information, notifications, very light, very convenient stuff. The Apple VR headset is like an Apple TV. So it's meant to give you like Apple Music, but in concert venues, Apple TV, but in theaters, Fitness Plus, but like at the top of a mountain, like games, but like fully immersive games. But they're going to have all of those services, but they're not going to have a persistent world. Like there won't be your Apple house, and there won't be like the Apple city that you can walk around in. So like, and that's what Facebook wants to build. They want to build a world where you're stuck in, like you're always in Facebook, because they're going to make their money off ads and selling you like NFT laundry machines. Like they're just going to they want you living in there. They want it to become like Ready Player One. That's like Zuckerberg's dream, because that's how they're going to monetize it. Apple's going to just ask for your money, and then like they'll give you a bunch of things that you can do there. I always joke that it's like Apple is like going on a date Dutch. You know, you both sit down, you both have a meal, you both pay your checks, and then it's your business what happens after. Google is like, they'll take you out to dinner, they'll buy you a lobster, but then they'll sort of like leer at you afterwards. And like there's certain expectations for you to like share at that point. Facebook is like a buffet, but you have to eat it naked, you know, and they have the right to probe you. That's the best metaphors. And it's true. Like they want you in the metaverse because they want to pull every ounce of data off you they can. And Apple could care less about that. So they just want to give you like TV and games and exercise and stuff.
So when I put this Apple VR headset on, it's not going to immerse me in like a 3D world, like an Oculus Quest 2 or something like that. We're just going to have like Apple TV on your face. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, it's running ROS. It's running Reality Operating System, which is another fork of like what they've been doing for a while now. And like there'll be like menus and things. It'll be like an Apple TV experience, just all immersive on you. But you won't have like Viper HQ, which is your building with like your furniture, and like El Jefe won't come and visit you in your Viper. Like maybe to a very small extent, but they expect like you'll watch a movie and then take it off and go do something else, or you'll do like Fitness Plus and then take it off and do something else. Facebook really thinks you'll put it on and then like never take it off again. You'll just live in it.
Hey, sometimes you can get lost with in that Oculus Quest too. I know.
Trent is asking. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Trent is asking if it would make sense for them to make an Android app. And I think, you know, they've considered it. Like, you know, Jefe said, there's a music app, but I think they feel like they're so close to independence. It would be a lot of resources and money to spend for something that would only exist for like a very short period of time. Especially when you try to figure out like how do they like setting up everything an Apple Watch can do, all the health stuff, all the organization stuff. That is a big app, and that's a lot of work if they're going to make it obsolete in a year or two.
True story. So, speaking of which, Renee, the iPhone in 2022, Renee, our new iPhones still have a Lightning port. Is there any hope, Renee, of ever losing the Lightning port in favor of USB Type-C at all?
So, I mean, there's different problem spaces, and people have to stop and like a while ago, I wrote this article back when the iPhone 6 came out, 6S. The iPhones were big and people were like, oh, I want a smaller iPhone. And my article was like, you don't want a smaller iPhone. You want a smaller device. You want the screen to be the same size. You want the device to be smaller. And that's because I'd heard about Apple making the iPhone 10, and that's what it turned out to be. And like, so there are some people who want USB-C because they use USB-C for other things, and it would be convenient just to be able to plug USB-C into everything. I totally get that. Other people just want a faster connection. So like if you see a Lightning port on an iPhone 14 rumor, maybe it's Thunderbolt Lightning. We don't know. Like it could be anything. So like, is your goal to get faster, like a faster cable, or is your goal to get a more compatible cable? I think USB-C on an iPhone, for several reasons, Apple doesn't like it. One is that it's a very inconsistent experience. It doesn't do the same kind of charging management that Lightning does. And if you buy a Lightning cable, you know 100% it's going to work with your iPhone. If you buy a USB-C cable, is it low power, high power, low data, high data? Is it one of the ones that'll burn through your house, or is it one of the ones that Google engineer had to review on? Like, and all this stuff is fine on an iPad and a Mac because they have huge batteries, and you know, if the battery drains or doesn't charge properly, it's less of a problem. A phone is just such a dependent device. Apple wanted, as typical for Apple, they wanted as much control over everything as possible. People always say Lightning is money. Like Lightning is pocket change compared to the billions of dollars they make off the iPhone. They don't need that money. They can make that money through another stupid case if they wanted to. It's because they wanted control over the complete charging process for an iPhone.
My thing is, I just want charging congruency between all my Apple devices. I got one device that charges via USB-C. I got another device that charges via Lightning. Then another device that charges via MagSafe or however, and inductive charging. Can I just get one unified charging standard for all my Apple devices? That would be lovely. Why, Renee? Why can't we have that?
Because they'll go to wireless, and then they'll just say everything's charging wirelessly now.
So how far away do you think we are from a wireless future with Apple?
I think it's actually a race because Google has been working on it for a couple of years now, and they just couldn't get wireless restore working. Like I believe there was like a Pixel. Sonny's probably using it. There's like a Pixel 3 prototype that was completely portless, but they couldn't get the restore function working. So they went back to the port prototype. But like, I think like next, like they're already doing it at Apple. If you bring the Apple Watch doesn't have a diagnostic port anymore. If you take it in, they now do all of that wirelessly. And if they can get ridiculously fast wireless connections, I think they're just going to switch to that next year after that.
Oh, I hope they figure something out because I just want one unified charging solution. That would be
I just
great.
want ProRes. I just want to get ProRes off my phone without it getting taking 3 days.
So if you airdrop your ProRes video, it takes all day to do that?
It depends on the size. It's 6 gigabytes per minute.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you do 3 or 4 minutes of ProRes, that's like 24 gigabytes, 30 gigabytes.
No, I've never tested it, but is there like a file limit size for transferring files via airdrop?
No, but the rate of it failing increases over time.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
See, this is the thing that like it really there's a lot of stuff that people don't know about Apple, and it really makes them frustrated. And I wish Apple would communicate better about it, because Trent's like, he's still waiting for Apple Watch to have a Qi charger. It's inconvenient to charge the watch. And like back in 2015, Apple looked at Qi chargers, but they had 2 problems with it. They weren't at that time high enough capacity to charge the watch fast enough for what they wanted, or with the right kind of power management overnight. And also, like the watch wouldn't stay connected because it had that big hump on the back, and it was just finicky. And they're like, screw it, we're going to superset. So it is Qi, it's just Qi Plus. It requires that magnetic attachment to it, and you can fake it sometimes. Like if you have a magnet in the Qi charger, you can fake it into charging. But they wanted it to make that thwack sound so that you knew it was going to be charging. Mm-hmm. And Qi wasn't really a thing. It wasn't that popular. A few devices had it, like the Palm WebOS devices, some Samsung devices. So they just made their own version, and then people get stuck using it, and Apple doesn't want to change it on people. So they'll wait like 5, 6, 10 years and then make a new version. It's super annoying, but once you understand, like if you're the engineer working on it back in 2015, your worldview is very different than the customer being annoyed by it in 2022.
That's the truth. So I want to go back to the whole iMessage and fostering bullying thing real quick. I was talking this morning with Juan Carlos Bagnell, and we were talking about he was talking about how Apple maybe should come out and with some type of PR statement saying how they don't condone bullying, this, that, and the other. And I think I'm with the mindset that I don't know if that would help, if anything, and it probably wouldn't even, it would probably hurt Apple more than anything if they were to do that. Do you think Apple should maybe come out with a statement just denouncing bullying and the way iMessage is being used, Renee, or do you think they should just stay mum, or how would you like to see them handle that?
I'll preface this by saying, like, I used to work in on the other side of the fence. I used to write press releases. Yep. I used to work in PR. My worst nightmare was always an executive talking, like, because you can't control that, like, so you minimize how much they can talk. But like, to me, that I would be like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, because you can't win that game, because then they're outraged about the next thing, and now you set a precedent that you're going to address every minor Twitter. And I'm not like trying to make light of it. I'm sure like it really affects people and it's a problem, but you could find 30 problems that people would consider major any given day. And if you're just doing like, oh, there's Twitter villain of the day, put out a press release. Oh, different Twitter villain of the day, put out a press release. I would consider that an abject failure of the entire system at that point.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. There's no winning in that situation for Apple. If they come out and with a statement, then they're just making themselves the target to get attacked for that or something else. So yeah, there's just no scenario in that situation where Apple can win. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to be mum about and just continue to go about your business.
Like, Viper, will you put out a press release saying you don't support the blowing up of Lego sets? And you're like, I've never blown up a Lego set. I've never even heard it. Well, you put out a statement saying you don't support it then? And you're like, okay. Oh, you support blowing up Kinect sets. No, but you only said Lego. Like, which toys do you support blowing up? It's just, no, the less the better. And Apple is like, I don't want to say they're bad. Like, Apple believes in like really like measuring 20 times and then cutting once. Like, they will wait until they've checked everything, they've dotted every I. And sometimes that makes it worse for them, because in the absence of information, all the speculation flows around, and they don't do crisis PR at all. Like, they don't have a crisis PR team like some companies do. So everything really is their product team going through it and trying to figure out what an answer is and then saying what they can about it. But just like addressing every Wall Street Journal article and WAPO article would be terrible.
And like I said in my video yesterday, you don't mix business with personal stuff. I think the Google executive tried to make it a little bit personal, and that's just bad business, because business is not personal. It's literal business. Apple's not going to do anything that could potentially affect or negatively affect their business or their bottom line. I mean, they don't think about the vocal minority when people are complaining about the lack of a 120 hertz ProRes screen, or people are complaining about iMessage fostering bullying when that's like a vocal. I don't know if the bullying thing is a vocal minority, but the whole RCS thing is definitely a vocal minority. Apple's not going to make moves based off a vocal minority. They have a whole $3 trillion empire to run, and they're going to make the moves that are best for that whole empire, not just one little scenario. So,
oh, and sorry, I want to be clear. I didn't mean it by any means that Juan's dumb. Juan is a genius. I just meant that, like, letting executives put out press releases for everything that happens in the Wall Street Journal. As someone who worked in PR, I would stop that immediately. I say, oh, that's the worst idea ever. Not Juan's idea, but the idea of an executive doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I know why the Google exec came out there on Twitter and said what he said. You know, he's trying to get that court of public opinion thing going, but his delivery was just completely off and messed up. So,
well, Google has a couple of problems. One is that Android is not growing in North America. Like it is dominant in the rest of the world, but in North America, like you saw, like if 70% of teens are using, or like whatever number people settle on, where they think it's 50, 60, 70, 80%, that's a huge problem for Google and for Android. And the other problem is that because of internal politics, they have never been able to make a messaging solution of their own. And they've tried many. Like, think about it. Like, iMessage is insignificant globally, but Facebook owns WhatsApp and Instagram DMs and Facebook Messenger. There's no Google equivalent. Like, Google has nothing. Facebook has all of these things. And then there's WeChat, which is a monster in China, and Line and other services. It's highly fragmented. And Google has the internet company. The backbone of the internet has nothing. So the fact that they have nothing and that they're losing in North America probably puts a ton of, like, that. To me, that's probably why Hiroshi did that, is because that's not a position they want to be in, and maybe RCS helps them in North America. Like, I know Max is right, like it'll help iOS users in some ways, but Google just doesn't have an answer for any of this stuff right now.
Yeah. So Michael Pepper says, everyone I talked to about the RCS, the conversation had come down to them wanting to support it, to push Android OEM to support it, but also people get upset that Apple has to make things real. Yeah, that's like the running thing in the tech space, that nothing actually goes mainstream until Apple makes it mainstream. And like a lot of people have been telling me since I made this video, RCS is not a perfect thing. Like Renee said earlier, RCS still have some work to do. So trying to get Apple to support RCS, which is not even complete in itself, kind of hogwash if you really think about it, because it's not there yet. It's not where it needs to be to garner that widespread adoption.
And Apple doesn't announce features. Like, I don't know why people are so upset about this in January. There is zero chance that Apple would announce a major iMessage feature in January. That's what they do in June. Like, let's say like June comes up and Apple announces complete RCS support. They're not going to say they're going to do that in January. There's just like no world where that happens. And like, to your point, they could do something like Google did, or they could go out and try to break the arms of every carrier, like they've been doing. Like, Apple put out 5G way later than Samsung, for example, but they literally went and busted arms at every carrier to make 5G work better on an iPhone than it had any rights to be working at that point with that modem. Like, they made, like, they went in and they did tons of testing, tons of optimizations. They work, and that's a lot of effort and and they would have to do the same thing if they wanted like a really robust, like you could do the Google thing, but a really robust carrier supported RCS, they'd have to knock a lot of heads, and that takes a lot of time, and they have to choose which heads they knock at any particular point in time.
Yeah, you gotta choose the battles that you want to fight. And again, if it doesn't enhance Apple's bottom line, they're not going to fight the battle. Trenton says, why is it so hard for people to just download a universal communication app? When you choose Apple, you are choosing to be in the minority worldwide. iMessage is mostly an American thing. Well, it's like I said in my video yesterday. Whenever you have to have the consumer do extra work to download an app or something, you are already playing at a disadvantage. iMessage is naturally baked into iOS, so when you go text somebody, you're automatically using iOS. With Google Messages and RCS, number one, you have to have the Google Messages app on your Android, which I think is there by default. But then you got other Android OEMs that have their own messaging app, like Samsung has their own app, and then depending on what carrier did you have, Verizon or T-Mobile might have their own app. It's a mess. But whenever you make the customer do extra work to download your app, you are already, that's just not going to work. It's not intuitive. It's not, like, for us tech nerds, of course, it'll be easy for us to go download an app. But for the average everyday person, they're not going to want to do that extra work to download an app to message when it's right there on baked into the OS. So that's the
other problem. It's like when people like insist or say that, like, it's Apple's duty to make iMessage for Android. Like, they don't want it. They don't care. They're on WhatsApp. They're on WeChat. They don't
Yeah.
like you. It wouldn't be like, the reason that iMessage even has a presence in North America is because it's built in. Like you just get the phone and use messages, and you don't know. It works.
Yes.
Like you don't have to even think about it. If you made iMessage for Android, people would have to download it and then start using it. And there is very close to a zero chance that anyone is going to leave like WhatsApp or anything. And if you're saying that, well, Apple is encrypted and people need an encrypted messaging solution, that's Signal. Like you have that. You can just sell. Look, go download. And well, it's hard for my family to get my family down. Well, then they're not going to download iMessage either. Like it's like this really circular logic thing where none of this is a solution to anything other than some people feel angry about it and want to complain.
What, Renee? Complaining on the internet? Say it ain't so, Renee. Say it ain't so.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, other people, like people do download apps all the time, but they've got that. Like WhatsApp owns that. WeChat owns that. There is a 0% chance Apple will take significant market share from any of those apps internationally.
No, like you said, nobody internationally cares about iMessage. No.
What they could do, and I'm joking about this, so please don't blog it, but what they could do is create Messages Plus, where whether you're on iOS or Android, you pay $3 a month, and then you get a gold bubble. You get a golden bubble. So you got your green bubble, your blue bubble, and then your bougie gold bubble if you have Messages Plus.
Not just any gold bubble, your bougie gold bubble, y'all.
Your bougie gold bubble. And then anybody who wants it can have it. Apple gets their servers paid for. It always makes me laugh too, because like people are like Apple should make iMessage for Android. Apple, the company that is terrible at services and cross-platform, you want them to make a cross-platform service. Perfect. Enjoy.
That's fun.
It'll work as well as iTunes on Windows.
Great. That is great. So let's shift the conversation to something that's a little bit more, I don't even know if you want to call it wholesome, but we just had CES 2022, Renee. It was in person. For the most part, I think it went off without a hitch, although there was an article that said a bunch of Korean executives caught COVID. But I think by and large, CES was pretty tame this year as far as the virus and different things like that. What are your thoughts about CES being in person this year? Or do you think it's too soon? Do you think we should wait longer? Or what are your thoughts exactly?
Yeah, I think like, if I was in God mode and I got to and I was doing like Sim CES, I got to decide everything, I would have kept it. I wouldn't have made it in person. I just think the risks, and I know they're having the same argument about MWC right now. I don't think the risks are worth it. Especially with the caseloads we're seeing now. If anything, like I would keep people at home until, flatten that curve again, Viper, flatten that curve until it's stomped into the ground. But I'm, if people came home safe, that's all I really wanted for everybody.
Yeah, it's hard because we've been going through this for 2 years now, and people want to get back to doing in-person things, but you got these new variants that are spiking up practically every week, and it's making it harder to have these in-person events. I know that Samsung, they have an Unpacked event next month that they're doing virtually. I'm going to assume that Apple's WWDC is going to be virtual. They're probably not going to be in person. And like you said, MWC, I think it sounds like they're going to go for in-person, so that's really interesting to see how that goes. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird that there are going to be a lot of there are some events that are going to be in person this year. There are other events that are going to be virtual this year, and we'll just have to see how 2022 plays out as far as cases and spikes and different things like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, something Trent said there that people are too lazy to download an app. It's not laziness. People can download an app. It's network effect. It's getting people to download a new app that none of their friends are on, that they have very little incentive to switch to. Like if you live in Brazil and you're not on WhatsApp, you might as well not live in Brazil. If you live in China and you're not on WeChat, you might as well not live in China. And like they could download iMessage, but getting a critical amount of your friends to move to it, I think is like a close to zero chance that anyone would migrate en masse to an iMessage app. It's not compelling. But to your point, yeah, like usually pandemics seem to be 5-year things. And like the last pandemic, people just chose to stop caring about it. And then like they let the bodies like mount up. And then they just like 5 years later, it was burned out and they just kept on roaring with the 20s. That was fine. We could do that too. It doesn't seem very like empathetic to me. I think we're handling it better than we did in previous years. But like my expectation is like there'll be 5 years of chaos and then we'll be at the other side of it. 5
years, Renee? 5?
Well, we're 3 years in already. That's not much longer.
Jesus, man. Damn. Wow. Holy
Well,
crap.
I mean, that's how long the Spanish flu lasted. And apparently it's as long as the 100 years. Every 100 years, we got to spend 5 years indoors. That's just like the nature gets sick of us. It starts to scratch or something. We duck and cover. It goes back to sleep. We come out again.
Holy Lord. Wow. Oh boy. Oh man,
Yeah,
that's
Joseph is right too. I was watching Ron. I'm going to pronounce his Ron. His name Ron Amato from Ars Technica, where he's like, "You're not solving the problem with RCS because it's still connected to your phone number, and phone numbers are hot garbage, and we should be getting rid of them. And it's not fair to people who can't afford phone service. They need to be able to go into a library, log in with an email address, access any messaging system. Why are we still using telephone numbers in 2022?" And like, fair enough. There's only so many problems we can solve at once.
seriously. All right, we got about 20 minutes left before I'm gonna get out of here. If anybody in the Twitter space wants to come and contribute to the conversation, feel free to let me know. Raise your hand. I will bring you up here. In case you were not aware, I am live on YouTube and Twitter Spaces at the same time right now. Figured I would open up Twitter Spaces for people to come and chat with me and Renee if you want to do that. Not required, but we're only gonna be here for another 20 minutes because I don't want to hold Renee up, and I just want to be here an hour tonight. So if you guys want to come chat with us, let me know. All right, Trent says, I don't know, Renee, peer pressure is strong. I see kids tell other kids to download apps in school and they don't even question it.
Yeah, that's a two-way thing. Well, first, like if Trent could get a bunch of people onto like off WhatsApp and WeChat or onto iMessage, Apple make him a vice president. Like he can go one-on-one with Hiroshi. Like I think they would love that. I legit think they would love that. I just don't think that they can make it financially viable for themselves at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to the thing that you were talking about at the very beginning of this live stream. Any business move that these companies consider making has to be something that's going to increase their bottom line. There is no incentive for Apple to do something like incorporate RCS if there's no financial benefit to the company. Okay, at the end of the day, they are running a business, and when you think about it like that, it kind of makes this stuff a lot more simple. But a lot of people interject their feelings into business dealings, and again, these companies aren't interjecting feelings into their business moves. They're not doing that because it's business. It's not about your personal feelings or principles or biases. It's what will make us the most money. What is the bottom line? Will this move increase or help our bottom line, or will this move play towards eventually increasing our bottom line? And if it doesn't, they're not going to do it. And that's how most companies are run. Most companies don't run. Actually, I don't know any companies that run on emotion. They run on business sense. And when you think about it like that, it becomes a lot more simple. But again, when you got everyday people that aren't accustomed to how to run a business or how businesses run, they expect everything to just play off of their emotional fields. And I'm sorry, but real life and business doesn't work that way.
All that said, I would love if Apple replaced SMS with RCS once it's encrypted, because I just don't want to ever have to deal with non-encrypted protocols ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted in the video last night. There are definitely benefits to RCS. I mean, the re-receive, their chat reactions, the larger file size transfer, better group messaging interactions. I mean, RCS definitely has some benefits. I'm not saying RCS is bad, but again, I'm gonna go back to what I just said. Right,
Sean's saying it's good.
right. RCS is good, but right now, Apple has no financial incentive to adopt RCS into iMessage. And until something changes, whether with the technology, it getting more mature, or maybe legislators get involved because they want to switch to a better standard than SMS, there is going to be no change on
They'll make
Apple.
us use our ICQ or something. That's just how technologically advanced.
He said ICQ. I have not heard that term in like 20 years. ICQ. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, well, IRC, maybe it would be hilarious. But like, none of this is new either. Like, you remember back in the day, like if you didn't have BBM, you couldn't like work on Wall Street or like marry anybody who worked on Wall Street. Like, that was just like the reality of the world. It's like, if you didn't, before you weren't on BBM, you weren't like a player.
No, exactly. So I guess I would be remiss to not talk, since I have you here, I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about iPhone 14. And I mean, I know it's that time of year. We got to talk about iPhone 14, even though we're like 9 months away. But the hot report from there are this whole pill-shaped camera thing. I don't know. Then they're talking about Apple maybe implementing a 48 megapixel camera system on the iPhone 14. I mean, I know you did a couple of videos about these leaks and rumors and different things like that. So out of all the things that you've heard so far about the iPhone 14, what is the most feasible to you? What might actually happen in your opinion?
I like the idea of a pixel bin camera. I've been wanting a pixel bin camera on the iPhone for a while. Not like just for the sake of pixel binning, but if they can actually, so basically, if you're not familiar with pixel binning, basically megapixels were always sort of hot garbage because you don't really care about the quantity, you care about the quality. So how many pixels you have aren't as important as how good those pixels are. And over the last few years, Apple's been making bigger and bigger pixels. But at a certain point, you run out of resolution. So if Apple wants to do 8K, for example, or if they want to start doing higher level zoom, or if they want to make the pixels bigger, one of the ways that they can do that is by chopping them up and then making every segment slightly bigger. And then you basically fuse them back together, which sounds like a lot of extra work, but it produces good results. So basically you cut the sensor up into 4, you make each part slightly bigger, and then you fuse it back together 1/4. I know that's the world's terriblest explanation, but you take a 12 megapixel sensor, you make it a slightly better light absorbing 48 megapixel sensor. And then like a retina display, it was like 4 pixels for every previous 1 pixel. This is like 4 tiny pixels for every new fused. I'm describing this terribly, but that's the idea. But it'll give us better still photos. It could give us better zoom depending on what Apple does with it. And it'll let them shoot in 8K, which they can't do right now.
Yeah. I mean, anytime we talk about upgrades to the camera, I think you're going to pique a lot of ears. And we know that Samsung is running out. They're running out there, or they're running over there a 108 megapixel camera because of the pixel binning that you just alluded to. There's a lot of other phones over things like the Xiaomi's and the Redmi's and things like that have bigger 48, 108 megapixel sensors and things like that. But here's the crazy thing. Even with its 12 megapixel cameras last year, I feel like, and even me and Marquez Brownlee both agreed that the iPhone had the best camera system of any phone last year, just because it's just the things that you can do between photos and videos. Even at 12 megapixels, nothing touched the iPhone, not even a Pixel 6 Pro and different things like that. So Apple, if they were to upgrade their already industry-leading camera system, that would be pretty damn major, Renee. I mean, woo, that would be scary.
Yeah, like the thing is, like the iPhone has been good at everyday photography for years. Like if it's like good light and you pull out the camera and take a shot, you're almost always going to get a good shot. So what they've been doing over the last few years is working the edges, like giving you more shots over a wider range. So like night mode, if you're in darkness, deep fusion, if you're in like room light instead of daylight, and the sensors are getting faster and taking in more light so that if you're moving a little bit, or like you were in that lower light, and this just gives them the ability to do that even more. So like right now, like low light is still really hard for small phone cameras. It's all done computationally, but Apple can do a little bit more optically. And I like Apple's approach. Like Google does almost everything computationally until the Pixel 6. They started going big optics on the Pixel 6, but for years, it was just all computational. And that resulted in really good photos, but they were all like, you could tell a Pixel photo a mile away. It was cool. It was crisp. It had that Google look. And meanwhile, like the Xiaomi and the Samsungs, and the Huawei's, they were like putting giant Nokia, like OG Nokia size glass on everything. And their algorithms were hot garbage. It's like the red was oversaturated, faces were beautified. It was terrible, but they had such good cameras. Like it didn't really matter. You could just shoot optically if you wanted to. And Apple is like trying to be in the middle with like some really good optics and some really good algorithms, not the best of both, but to me, they produce I like it because I still feel like a photographer. Like if I change things, it feels like I still control the shoot. And because it's real time, I can always see exactly what I'm getting. A lot of the cameras, you take a photo and then it spins around for a while. You're like, yep. I cut off his ear. Then I got to do it again. And I like that the iPhone lets me see almost everything but night mode in real time.
And I love how when I snap a picture with the iPhone, I get the picture instantly. There's no processing or anything like that. What I shoot is what I get. Sometimes when I take a picture with my Pixel 6, the picture like it half break. It doesn't completely finish processing. It gets caught in a processing limbo, which is weird. It looks like an 8-bit Nintendo game. It's kind of crazy, but
well, it's also like it affects things like with the iPhone because it's real time. You get instant shutter. Like I was shooting with the Pixel 4 and the iPhone. Which one would it have been? The iPhone 11. It was Halloween. I was shooting Georgia, and as I was shooting, her brother came and put his arm around her. And on the iPhone, because it's instant shutter, I just got a photo of Georgia. The Pixel, because it is not instant shutter, I got a picture of Georgia and her brother. And like you can have different opinions about that, but one is when I press the button and one is not when I press the button.
Indeed. Zach with the $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. He's a gentleman. Open invite to join me tonight. No worries if you can't. Hope you're both doing well. I might take you up on that apple, Zach. I saw some of the things that you're talking about tonight. I might have to come over there and check you out, no doubt.
I have to film after this, but if I can remember to have the microphone plugged in this time and I get it done in time and you're still streaming, I'll let you know.
Yes, the dreaded microphone unplugged thing. Man.
Yeah.
So bad. But hopefully, I mean, we all make it. Anybody that shoots shoots filming or edits videos, different things like that, you're gonna have a thing where you don't plug the mic in or your external sources like route a juice. It's gonna happen. Just learn from it and gotta do it over. But any Twitter space, finally, I got somebody come up in chat. Michael Pepper is on Twitter. Michael, what's going on, man? How you doing tonight?
Doing good. I was just thinking about what Renee was saying about pixel binning. And I think one of the things that is also interesting, and we've seen some companies do this. Well, LG did this is for simulation as far as like a gimbal mode. So having those extra pixels as far as stabilization when recording a video, I could see Apple doing that. And then also there's one thing that if and Renee can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, that the reason why 4K is limited to 30 frames per second as far as HDR is because the sensor is actually capable of capturing at 4K 120 frames per second, and they're combining 4 frames for that HDR so they can get that live. And so by adding the extra pixels, they could do that without actually combining um, intermediary frames. They could actually do that all at each basically per second, as opposed to anything in between. So you don't have to deal with potential issues with blur. You don't have to deal with issues with low light. You'd have crazy good quality video because you're now able to capture that at once, as opposed to like every 4 frames combined. You can just combine 4 pixels, and it's amazing to think that that's where I see them doing it. Not necessarily oh, you're going to have this high resolution image now, you're going to have a larger sensor, you're going to have more pixels, but for the stabilization, because they can essentially take pixels from the center of that frame, and if there's any motion, that motion is just countered by the extra pixels kind of around that. We see, I mean, that's why I like my Sony A6100, when you shoot in 4K, it's cropped in. Part of that is because of stabilization, and it improves that by grabbing the middle section of that sensor as opposed to using the whole thing, because it's not full frame. That's kind of my thoughts on that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that they're dealing with, just constraints of physics, and one is the reason they interleaved to get extended dynamic range on previous iPhones is that the chipset just wasn't fast enough when they were dealing with handling the stacking of frames that quickly. They couldn't do it at a fast enough rate to do it for every frame, so they did every second frame and interleaved it. But I believe by now, with the current silicon on 4K, they can just do that. But you can stack, like when you're doing image stacking, which means you take multiple exposures, multiple segments, you do a bunch of different AI to figure out what's in every photo. You can take the full frame, like the 48 megapixels, and the 4x down, the pixel bin version. You can combine those, and that's good because you have two tensions. One is detail and one is noise. You want as much detail as possible with as little noise as possible, and you can pull detail from the full frame and reduce noise with the bin frame. That's great. The cropping down is mostly because behind the scenes, if they take the center of the frame, they can move everything else around. So the thing is still jittering. They're just only taking the front of the frame and moving with it. So you're basically canceling out the motion. But you put all of those things together and you can start doing a lot higher quality video, like all other things being equal.
Nice. All right, we got the last question of the night from Zach here. He says, Renee, do you think we'll ever see a leap with cameras, or just no small updates year over year for the foreseeable future?
So I think it all depends. Like, this is one of those things where people say like there's no innovation anymore, and it depends like what you consider to be innovation. Like, I'd argue last year with the iPhone, the ability to capture ProRes, 4K Dolby Vision ProRes 422 HQ, which is again 6 gigabytes per minute of video, to not only like bring that in through the sensor, but process it and write that to an SSD without dropping a frame, is a tremendous leap forward. Like, would that we could actually have a connector that would take it off? Yes, but that was an incredible leap forward in camera technology. Getting Dolby Vision on the year before, and I think we're going to keep seeing that. Like now with the cinematic mode, we've at the beginning of being able to change focal positions in a photo, and whatever we're seeing, like maybe it'll be like we have the dual I'm blanking on the term, when it can do 2 different exposure at the same time on a higher end camera, desagged, I forget what they call it. We'll start to just see more of those features move over. You're always going to be limited by the physics of the glass. Computation will exceed that, but you'll have some, like you still take a portrait mode even with like the Pixel, it's fantastic, but you can tell it's portrait mode. There's like a little bit uncanny. And that's hard to get past. But like those things, that ability to do ProRes and to do super zoom on a pixel, those things I think are big leap forwards.
Yeah. I think if we do see the camera updates that are rumored with the iPhone jumping up to a 48 megapixel sensor, that will be quite the leap from what we had last year. That's going to be kind of major. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that particular rumor comes to fruition at the later part of the year.
The periscope zooms are what Marquez calls creep mode, when you start getting into like 100x.
Or if Faulty Car will call it scumbag Zoom.
Yeah.
So Renee, before I let you go, when are we going to get you on these Sony cameras, man? I know you were a Canon guy, but when are we going to get you over to the Sony camp, sir?
So, I mean, like, there's no point, like, there really is no point for me because it's like one of those things where I have so much Canon glass and I have like a Canon cinema camera and the Sonys are as good, but like, there's no real reason for me to switch. If it gets to the point where I'd have to replace my cameras anyway, then I'll look and see what the best thing is. But once you have, like, then you have to sell. I think a lot of that is just like Twitter flexing. It's like I'm switching camera brands every year. It's like unless you love cameras, like some people just love cameras and they buy them all the time. Like you might buy Lego sets, or someone else might buy cars. You know, if it's like a passion, then buy everything. Like, you know, it's great. But like I would have to need another camera and Sony would have to have features that are so compelling that I'd be willing to replace the lenses at the same time. I'm not religious about it. I'd switch in a second. I was all in on Microsoft and now I'm all in on Apple. So I'm happy to change.
Yeah, I agree with you. Owning multiple Sony cameras and Sony glass and things like that, I can see myself switching over to Canon just because I have a workflow now. And like you have a whole bunch of Canon glass and you have a workflow. I don't want to interrupt my workflow learning a brand new camera system. I'm not doing that. So I completely understand. But
let's just say this year Fuji has the 3 best cameras. Like just for some reason, Fuji cameras this year are the best. Neither of us are going to change. Like realistically,
no, God no. I mean, I just brought the Sony A7 IV and I'm loving this thing. I'm not switching another for at least 3 or 4 years.
Gary's buying a Rivian, and I know he's going to use the Rivian backup camera as his A-roll camera, you know, for at least 3 videos. But like that's not me.
Hey, that Rivian backup camera should be legit, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I appreciate all of y'all listening in the Twitter Spaces and on the YouTube live stream. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Like I said, I'm going to try to live stream at least twice a week now. I'm not making any guarantees. Obviously, I'll be live every Friday night. But as far as the Wednesday night thing, that will vary depending on my workload. But I'm going to try to come at you guys at least one day extra a week now this year instead of the normal Friday. But thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you all. Thank you to my man, Renee Ritchie, for making time. I know it's short notice, so thank you, sir. Always appreciate you. And other than that, I hope you all have a lovely Wednesday evening, and I will catch you on Friday night. But until the next time, people, this your boy Viper, the man about tech. You know where to find me. So come back for more.